What's up, everybody? Welcome to Homertown Hockey, presented by Slapstick Clothing. My name's Phil Bittner. I'm joined by Colton Gogger.
What's going on?
Unfortunately, Dylan or Trent are not able to make it this week, but it's looking like moving forward, we're gonna have the quadfecta for a while. So that's
Let's go.
really exciting. I can't wait.
Let's go. It'd be nice to have all four of us finally back together for the first time since like what would have been the All-Star break essentially.
It'll be the first, yeah, well, it'll be the first time ever having four.
Right.
So yeah, we'll be making history next week. I know people have been waiting. Everyone's asking me when's it gonna happen.
Where's Trent? Where's Trent?
But yeah, we don't have too much in the way of news today. Basically, Kenny Alberts and Wayne Gretzky joining the TNT staff.
hmm Yeah,
Sure,
so
I don't think Gretzky's
w-
gonna have anything particularly interesting to say, but
no.
it's a name at least. It's something.
Yeah.
It's probably good for recognition.
Yeah, Wayne will be joining as a analyst in they say in the capacity of sort of like the NBA on TNT thing that they already have. Um, and then Kenny Albert will be the main play-by-play commentator, and Eddie Chuck will join as his main color commentator.
And I think we already said Olczyk. I'm really glad to see he's going to TNT.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
I'm actually glad he's going to be back in the booth because I know some people don't like him, but like I actually think Eddie's really good at that job.
yeah, I was mainly worried that if NBC wasn't going to let him keep doing the races, the horses with them if he did TNT, because I genuinely don't know if he would have picked hockey if he had to choose between horse racing and hockey.
No, I don't think he would have.
So
Um,
I think he would have stayed doing the black, because I think the Blackhawks are still going to be NBC Sports, like the local affiliate.
yeah,
So
the
I think he
local
would have
like
stayed
NBC
doing.
Chicago.
Yeah, he would have still been. That's the thing. He could have still done hockey, just not on a national level. And
hmm
everyone loses because of it, in my opinion. Obviously, not everyone thinks that highly of Edzo, but I'm
hmm
happy to see it. Like I
Uh,
said, Wayne, fine.
this that comes on the back of Gretzky stepping down from his front office position with the Oilers the day after they were eliminated on May 25th.
Yeah, and it was pretty much like I heard that by the time I was getting messages about Gretzky leaving the Oilers, I was already seeing the reports that he was going to TNT.
hmm
And then yeah, and what what's Kenny Albert? What's his specific role? I'm guessing also just
He's he's the main play-by-play, so
okay.
he will be the NHL on Turner or TNT or whatever it's gonna be. He will be their main play guy.
Yeah. So that'll be, you know,
That'll, it'll be good. I
yeah,
mean,
he
I
won't be
mean,
getting distracted during games talking about the 90s Pirates and stuff like we've had on the national broadcasts up until Doc retired. So,
which I'm sure you didn't complain about.
um I mean, it was one of those things where I didn't mind, but I also when people talked about how great Doc was, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed his calls for the most part, but there was
Mhm.
times it's like, "Hey Doc, maybe focus on the game here. Like you just missed a goal cuz you were talking about Jay Bell." Like
Uh, Funny. But yeah, I'm excited to see what that's gonna look like heading into next year.
and the Pirates have made no headlines this week. No
No,
hilarious bloopers or anything. That
maybe my favorite play in the history of organized baseball.
was a generational screw up. That like my dad said it best. If he had done that in Little League, he'd still be running laps today. My dad is
Right.
pushing 70. Yeah, that was
It's
one
so
of the
true.
worst things I've ever seen. But, even as a Pirates fan, kind of glad it happened because it was objectively hilarious.
It really was.
Um,
And then in the last bit of news that we have before we move on, kind of breaking ish news, but according to Elliot Friedman, reporting on Sportsnet, that the Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman Seth Jones informed the Blue Jackets that he will not be re signing with the club and he will intend to test the free agent market Jones is 26 and has 1 year remaining on his contract at 4.5 or $5.4 million.
Sorry, I'm trying to herd animals. Get the cat out of the room and keep the dog in. She's not having it. I'll have to wait a minute and redo that. Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be. I think we know who's gonna be the big guy next summer for free agency. Someone is gonna pay Seth Jones. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make an $8 million or more a year when that deal comes.
Yeah, especially only at 26. He'll be 27 when he signs a new contract.
Yeah.
The other piece of this is he potentially asked to be released from his contract early.
I did not hear that part.
That's what, according to Sports Center, or not Sports Center, Sports Illustrated / the Hockey News, Jones told them going into this summer that he potentially does not want to return, but he absolutely will not re-sign next summer if it came to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that Columbus has had a hard time keeping high-quality players. This has been going on for a long time now, and
yeah,
you know, this really hamstrings them though moving forward. How long do they have? How long do they have Werenski locked up for?
Why do you ask these questions that I obviously don't know the answer to?
Yeah, I know. I'm looking it up. I thought maybe you could fill it in.
Yeah.
But it's got to be hard to imagine. I think it was like just a 3-year. Yeah, his contract expires after next season also.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine him wanting to stay and be, you know, the only player of note there, especially depending what happens with Laine. Like, we could be looking at a team that Jack Roslovic becomes the captain of soon, / best player.
If we also want to talk about not being able to keep, like, top-line players in, here's the list in just, like, the last 2 years. Artemi Panarin, Sergei Bobrovsky, Matt Duchene, Pierre-Luc Dubois.
And to be fair, Duchene was a rental.
Mm-hmm.
But, Dzingel is one that... Not like a top line player, but a good player that I would have thought they would have wanted to try to keep.
Dzingel's always been that guy, though. It doesn't matter what team he's on.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, yeah, I would like to have Dzingel on this team.
He's one of the better middle six forwards out there.
Oh, for sure.
But, yeah, this is... It's not looking good for Columbus anytime soon, really.
No. Which doesn't help when you don't have a head coach right now. And your star defenseman, who spent most of the season hurt, mind you, just is like, I'm coming back. And potentially asked to be let go with a year remaining on his contract.
Yeah, that's... I mean, on one hand, trying to get released from the contract, I guess... Why would Columbus do that rather than trade him, you know? Like, I see why it benefits him. If he can get released from the contract, he could sign for bigger money now.
I guess that's probably his way of saying... I guess him subtly saying, fucking trade me.
Yeah.
And then he'll just re-sign with wherever he gets traded.
Or he won't, you know?
Yeah, or he won't. But, I mean, the $5.4 million cap hit isn't a ton.
No. Yeah, someone will take that up in a trade, especially to get, you know, a year head start on negotiating rights.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly be able to get that extra year to maybe knock down the cap hit a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one way or another, Seth Jones is about to get paid a lot of money.
Correct.
And
where would he go? I mean, here's the thing, wherever Seth Jones ends up, whether it's this year or next year, there's going to be a lot of teams looking for high-end defensemen. Teams are going to lose somebody in the expansion draft, obviously. You know, I could think of, you know, the Wild would love a Seth Jones right now. Probably the Penguins would love a Seth Jones right now. Maybe not on that top pair, but on that second pairing. I mean, Carolina would love a Seth Jones right now. Just slot that guy in with that offense and that blue line. Um, there's a ton of teams who would love to have a Seth Jones right now.
Yeah. I mean, anyone would like to have him. It's a matter of who's going to be able to afford him with the frozen cap and everything. Because
Not going to Tampa.
At his age, he's too old. He's not going to be willing to take like a 3-year deal and then you pay him the big money after that. Because he is getting to that age where it's the perfect time. Like,
to sign up,
you can lock him up for 7 years and he'll only be 34 when it expires. If he, say he waited out the cap freeze with a shorter term deal, then you're talking about signing him till he's 36, and right about 35 there's a fine line there, and you're really banking on the cap being higher by then.
Especially for a defenseman, that 35-ish age is kind of interesting. But at the same time, like, Seth Jones to me falls in that category of player of way younger than I thought he was.
Yeah, he was.
I feel like that dude's just been around forever.
Well, yeah, because he started playing pretty. Remember, he was in that McKinnon draft because he was the projected number 1 overall, and then once Colorado took McKinnon, he fell to I want to say 7th when Nashville took him, and then obviously the Johansson trade. I mean, yeah, and also he would have been around sooner, but Nashville had such a stacked defense back then.
Right.
So I don't know if he did play. I don't think he was playing a large role at the beginning, but he's still he became a difference-making player very quickly.
Very. I mean, he helped. I think the only downside with Seth Jones is his health.
Yeah.
This year injured, kind of off and on the ice last year with some injuries. I think that would be the one caveat teams would have regarding signing him to any kind of deal long term.
Yeah, but then going for him is the fact that you're signing
a 26-year-old who's finally healthy,
who might win a Norris or two in his career.
Right.
So
that'll be an interesting development. I feel like there's 3 or 4 of those to watch this off season of players who could potentially be leaving early, whether it's through expansion or coming off their current teams with years remaining on their deal.
Yeah,
and it's not small people that could potentially be leaving either. Yeah,
there's at least one very high-level center that comes to mind for me whose contract expires next year.
Yep.
We'll get into that when we do our obituaries for the teams who were eliminated in the first round.
Yeah. And really, that's kind of the only news going around. What I'm reading is a lot of the head coaching vacancies are kind of going to wait to get filled at the moment. Nobody's really interviewing for them. I think a lot of teams are probably waiting for these first 2 rounds of the playoffs to be over to then potentially ask assistant coaches and whatnot. But, I mean, probably won't see some of those head coaching vacancies filled till July, August, especially with the quick turnaround this year.
Yeah.
For the season.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those years where, because it's all been so weird, I think we're actually going to have a pretty busy off season of things pretty consistently pieces moving. It's not going to be that year sometimes free agent, there's the season ends, then the draft, awards, free agency, and then the NHL just kind of goes quiet until the teams go to camp. I don't think we're going to have that this year. I think there's going to be steadily things, at least enough that we'll probably record every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the off season.
Especially with it looking like, if my timeline's correct, this season's going to end of June, early July, and then they'll be back in camp in October, September.
I think the goal is for them to be back to an early October start next year. Maybe more mid-October, but I mean there was a time where that was kind of what it was anyways, getting around the double digits of October.
Mainly a lot of that with the early October stuff was Olympic breaks and or potentially, I mean, we still haven't heard whether or not that'll be something to look at this offseason too, is Bill Guerin's trying to get it done so that they can have an NHL Olympic team this year, because he's the GM for Team USA right now.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I
that
thought they've already said the NHL's going.
I thought there was still some details to be worked out, that it wasn't like totally official yet. Because
That
remember,
is
it was
one of
going to
those
be
things where when I like there's like a bunch of different steps where it's pretty much happening. So there's like
yeah,
15 times where you hear it's official, but like this time, no, for real, like official, official.
yeah,
But yeah, do we want to move on to our
yeah.
kind?
You want to preview this?
Yeah, so basically what we're gonna do, we've been for all of last week kind of breaking down the series. So we're not gonna do that so much as we're gonna kind of go over like we did 2 weeks ago, where we gave a report card to every team who didn't make the playoffs. We're gonna do that for every team who was eliminated, and in that kind of sum up the end of each series. And through each division, we'll be covering the two teams that were eliminated, and then giving our takes going into the second round of that division. And yeah, then then favorite, least favorite, overrated, underrated, and we're fucking off.
Yeah. We'll start with the Central. Nashville ends up losing to Carolina, 4-2. Nashville. I'm gonna give these guys a B for this season. I don't think any of us expected them to be where they were, just much less make the playoffs. And when it came to the playoffs, they looked like a different team, man. They
We
have some
shit all
pieces.
over this team going into the first round and throughout most of the season. I
Yeah, we
Yeah, they based on it. If we're going based on expectations like we did last time, yeah, it's got to be a high grade. It's a B. They,
mhm.
I, I thought this was the year that finally like their time as a good team is over. It's in no small part due to UC Saros playing the best hockey of his life come the final stretch of the regular season.
Into the playoffs too. I mean, he kept Nashville in every single one of those games.
Yeah, they lost the first two games by I think it was 5-2 and 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, there was overtimes. They won 2 games in a row to tie the series at 2.
A
They made
double
it a good
overtime.
series.
Yep, they did.
And yeah,
And Carolina potentially has something with that former Wild line of Granlund, Cunning, and Howla. You know, obviously the Johansson, who's still down there. Johansson still has years left. There's It'll be interesting to follow these guys in the off season, because there's a potential these guys make a big move.
yeah,
I would not be surprised.
they really showed that the window might not be as closed as we all thought it was. And the way they played Carolina, they kind of and they get it's not a huge cap hit. They get Rene off the books this year. I can't imagine he's coming back. I think
No,
he's
they
gonna
kind of
be
gave him his farewell.
yeah. They showed with a Carolina team that I think a lot of people are worried about how do you solve them, that if you're able to basically play Carolina hockey against Carolina, if we've said before, Carolina, as good as they are at scoring or as good as they are at controlling the game, when they're not scoring, they're beatable. And
They get frustrated.
yeah, and Nashville helped kind of close off that scoring and managed to stay in a series with them. And I think that down the road, what Nashville did is going to lay the blueprint for someone beating Carolina doing something similar, just with a better team.
The other thing I kind of want to look forward to with Nashville, they return to that really loaded central of Colorado, Minnesota, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Chicago, and now the new addition with the expansion is Arizona.
Yeah,
So that's not going to be an easy division for them either. I mean,
that's a solid point.
yeah. So I mean, if they want to continue, if they want to truly prove like we're not dead yet down here, I think they're going to make a move this offseason. I don't know what kind of move it's going to be. They do have goaltending in the pipeline behind UC Saros, which is good. Um, but it will be interesting to see what kind of offseason. This is going to be a team you kind of want to pay attention to this offseason.
Oh, and one thing though for them with that goaltending situation that I like is that they did hold on to Rene all those years, and they let Saros organically grow and it slowly increase his role, so that he's not just going to go from a backup to suddenly be the starter. He's been transitioning towards a bigger role in net for a few years now.
And I think kind of towards the tail end of last year, you saw him become the true starter.
Yeah.
And then obviously this year it was UC Saros as the number one going in front of Pekka Rinne.
Yeah. So overall, good series. Nashville put up a fight, and they showed that they might not be done yet moving forward.
Yeah. So a B, we kind of in agreement in the B-ish territory.
Yeah, almost. I'm going to give it a B plus. They lost in the first round. I can't give it an A minus, but I mean, I thought this team was going to be terrible, and they put up a fight against the team I picked to win the cup coming in. So,
yeah, we'll move on to the other series in the Central, and that is Tampa Bay. Moving on, they beat Florida. I don't know how you don't give Florida anything but an A.
Yeah.
Despite how the series ended, you think of this team was written off at the beginning of the season into not only come in second in this conference or this division, but to get home ice over Tampa Bay and will give them everything they had for 6 games. I don't know how you say anything else about Florida that we haven't said yet this year.
And I think most of these players are coming back.
A lot of them are coming back.
They do have to figure out what they're doing with Bobrovsky. It's kind of insane to take a goalie in the first round right after you signed a $10 million goalie.
Yeah, but they have Spencer Knight, and he's...
That's what I mean. They drafted Spencer Knight and then went out and paid $10 million for a guy for 8 years. I think that's... I don't really understand why that was a thing. 7 years, sorry, not 8. But I think they have that to figure out. If they buy him out, I was looking at it the other day with the buyout calculator. It's not terrible. It's not ideal. I mean, buying out a $10 million a year contract after 2 years is never good.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what else you do. Bobrovsky cannot be their goalie. No. Spencer Knight looked great. The chances he got.
Maybe has the biggest save of the playoffs right now with that sliding save on Braden Point.
Yeah.
In Game 5.
Well, and I think Dreger made himself like someone who is gonna get signed. He's not gonna be making $850,000 again next year.
Well, didn't we kind of say about Dreger about being a guy who potentially could get moved this offseason?
That's what I mean. I think their biggest question mark moving forward is what they're going to do with goaltending. You obviously keep Spencer Knight. Maybe you might have to buy out Bobrovsky and then sign Dreger, try to get him at a low price to kind of help with Spencer Knight. You're also taking a chance in Dreger that this wasn't just a fluky year. He's not young.
Jordan Binnington.
Yeah. Well, Dreger isn't as young as Binnington either, though. So there's...
No.
He's 27, I guess. I thought he was older than he is.
Mm-hmm. But still, it's not...
And then as far as players going out, Sam Bennett, you got to think they're going to try to get him back.
Mm-hmm.
Wenberg, I think whatever happens there.
Yeah.
Anthony Duclair, I think you want to bring him back.
He played really well. He helped set that tone.
Lucas Wallmark, a couple guys I don't really... Scott Wilson, Penguins legend. Good fourth liner. If you want him back, you can have him. Strawman, Yandel are coming back. Brandon Montour hitting his first unrestricted free agency year. He was kind of a
Well,
plug stop for Aaron Ekblad, though. I think if you
I
can
was gonna
get the right
say
price, you want to keep him, but you're gonna
they
have
get Aaron.
Ekblad back next year.
I was gonna say that's the big thing is imagine what this team did this year with Aaron Ekblad in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah. I think, but overall, I think the most important pieces here are gonna be coming back, and Florida's gonna be here for a long time, as long as they navigate that goaltending situation well.
Correct. And unfortunately, we saw what happened last time after Florida made a deep run, losing in the Stanley Cup playoff and then basically being shit for the next decade. Um,
Yep.
so that's gonna, I'm sure there are some very aware Panthers fans out there of how they navigate this offseason.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. There's like 30 guys who are gonna be watching very closely to see what they do here.
Yeah.
No, it was good to see that fan base come alive a little bit this year. And especially, the big thing we said going in, the best thing that can happen for them is establishing that rivalry with Tampa, and boy, they fucking did that.
Boy, did they do that. That's maybe, I get it, 6 games, and the last game was kind of whatever.
They started
But
like mid-season battling each other pretty
I
hard,
know,
though.
but that's been the best playoff series so far.
Oh,
We have
yeah.
2 games. We've had 2 game 7.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about those here in a minute. But yeah, what is your final grade for the Panthers season?
I know I said with Nashville that losing in the first round, I can't give them an A, but Florida was just so good. They were great through the regular season. They had a shot at winning the division going into the final stretch. I've A minus. They
And
were
yeah,
really good.
I'm gonna go just a flat A. Kind of like you said, it's hard to give a team that lost in the first round an A, but dude, they were fucking good.
Well, and the
And
difference
they're
with Nashville is Nashville barely squeaked into the playoffs. Florida, right out of the gates, has been a dominant team all year. And
and we doubted them we were just like, there's no way Florida hangs on. I distinctly remember at least 2 or 3 episodes where we were just like, there's no fucking way.
the only problem for them, though, a lot like with Nashville, stepping into that division next year, they have Toronto, Tampa, and Boston all to deal with, and they might have to be fighting for a wild card spot.
Correct.
And wild card spots coming in the Metro are going to be tight too. So it's a big difference to get into the top 3 there, and there's 4 teams that can do it.
Yeah. We'll move on to the East. Boston take care of the Capitals pretty convincingly, 4-1. I know we talked about it a little bit. We did kind of, we called time of death last week on the Capitals. You want to talk about a team going into a very interesting offseason? It's going to be the Washington Capitals.
Well, I could say Detroit won the Mantha trade.
Yeah.
The thing with the Capitals is their top 6 is one of the more stacked top 2 lines in the league. But when you get deep into that lineup, they're not very good. Mm-hmm. They do not have a lot of depth. I'll give them a C plus. A lot of people thought they might be the 5th team looking out. And
well, they finished second in this conference, in this Eastern Division.
Yeah.
They technically had home ice on Boston.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Coming in, a lot of people thought they might not make the playoffs. It was kind of, I feel like a lot of people, it was between them and the Penguins for 4th and 5th.
Coming into the season. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
Not coming into the playoffs.
It. Yeah, you missed a step there.
Okay, yeah. And they held the division for a lot of the season. So they had a good season. So I'll give them a C plus, but part of this might be my bias against them. I don't like the Capitals, but I just don't see them as that good of a team once you get past those top 2 lines.
I have to agree. They're not a team that really stretches out scoring amongst the lines. I kind of said it last week, but I think that window kind of slammed shut for them pretty quickly. They have some goaltending issues now to figure out because obviously letting Braden Holtby walk was not the right move. Um, I just, I mean, again, say what you want about the season Braden Holtby had, but I kind of think he makes a difference this season. You know, I don't think you're whatever injury that their goaltenders have and their young goaltenders. Uh, that's not going to win you any points. I mean, the TJ Oshie Seattle thing has a lot of momentum purely because of Oshie's contract.
Yeah.
In reality, it would make a lot of sense. So you lose a guy like Oshie, probably going to lose Mantha, or not Mantha. Yeah, they're going to lose Mantha probably this offseason.
Mantha's still signed till 2024.
Oh, did he get traded with the contract left?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I thought it was just this year of control left.
Yeah, no, that was one of like the one things they had in their defense on that trade. Yeah, he is signed. They get 3 more years of Mantha.
And that's my bad.
Yeah. Yeah, out of their forward group, the only guy, they might lose Oshie. I've been hearing a lot of talk that they might want to get rid of Kuznetsov.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I don't really. I mean, he is. Wow, I did not realize he's almost 30.
Mm-hmm.
And
Again,
that's the thing. I mean, if you're doing that, you're kind of going into a rebuild. I think they find a way to bring Ovechkin back.
Yeah.
It's just hard to imagine an NHL where Alex Ovechkin isn't playing for the Capitals.
Hard to imagine an NFL where Brett Favre didn't play for the Packers.
That's true. Or where Aaron Rodgers might not be playing for the Packers.
It made my stomach hurt. Again, another team that's going to be, I know we didn't really mention it with Florida, but another team that's going to have a really interesting offseason for how they want to handle it. Because you could either look at it of like, yeah, you had a really good year and you ran into a ridiculously hot Boston team, or you had can look at it as like, you just got exposed by Boston.
Yeah. All right, sorry about that. We had to make a quick cut to save people's eardrums because feedback came in really bad. But yeah, basically this series it was over in 5, and there was a lot of close games, but there was never a real feeling that Washington was in this series after game 1. And it was a pretty underwhelming series competitively. It wasn't particularly fun to watch. I'm sure Trent loved it.
Right.
But if you're not a Boston or Washington fan, there really wasn't a lot to draw you into this series.
No. We talked about it too at the beginning of the series. We're like, this is going to be a fucking bloodbath. And it was, just not in the way any of us expected it to be.
Yeah.
In regards to how it ended up playing out.
Yeah, it had that aspect of two teams that don't like each other. But that's about all this series. It wasn't competitive. It was close game to game. I guess it was fine. But you just had the feeling the whole time. As soon as Boston got a lead, you kind of had the feeling the game was over each time.
Yeah, as it got into game 4 and 5, you could kind of just be like, all right, like this one's done.
Yeah.
So where do you fall in the Capitals this season? Granted, they were leading the division for most of the year, get ousted very quickly out of the playoffs, and now there's a lot of question marks surrounding them.
I'm gonna give them a C+, close to a B-, because people were thinking that this, basically the way that they kind of looked in the playoffs, I think is closer to what people expected from them all year. A decent team that's not gonna do much. A lot of people had them maybe 5th in the division. I had them up there because I just know better than to think I can ever count on this team just falling off like that. I'm not that lucky. And then, yeah, it is crazy looking moving forward. I mean, we talked about how they don't have the greatest depth. The only guys hitting free agency, Raffle, a guy I've never heard of, Lundqvist and Anderson, who were both rental goalies, Chara and Ledoux, and Ovechkin. And then next year, they only have a handful of guys, too. So I think they're going to be bringing back most of this team. The problem is, do you want to be bringing back most of this team?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was the beginning of the end for
Yeah.
Washington being, the Washington Capitals we've known over the last decade or so.
Agreed. And I'll just throw a little exception onto that. Part of it is I can already hear people being like, "Yeah, but if Craig Anderson doesn't have to come in and play most of this series, fucking Craig Anderson's the only reason this series wasn't a fucking sweep."
Craig
Like, let's be
Anderson's one of
honest
those
here,
goalies that I don't really get why people talk about him like he's
because he's a
not.
former senator.
Yeah, that's the thing. But he was a good goalie. He's been good his whole career. I think he held up better than they would have looked if Vanacek's in net that whole series.
Exactly. Um, Quickly, let's just touch on Boston. The additions from the deadline slash over the offseason looking great. How does anybody fucking stop Boston?
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah. I mean, even last night, we'll talk about the Islanders here, but that game was 2-2, and I was like, holy shit, we have a series here. I walked away for 10 minutes and came back, and it's 4-2 Boston.
Yeah, I did just realize that we forgot to go over our preview for the second round in the West, so we'll just do all the teams that got eliminated and then go through the
Yeah.
second round.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so Capitals, sorry about that. Capitals, you end up giving C plus.
yeah,
I'll give them a little bit higher of a grade. I'll go the hard B minus just because they did come in second in the division and they led it for most of the season. But a lot of the things you said ended up holding up true coming into the playoffs.
yeah.
We will go on to talk about that final series in the East. The Islanders eliminate the Penguins 4-2. Phil, what can you say?
In a word, it was horseshit. This was a absolutely heartbreaking series. Jari was just rough. We couldn't score. That's kind of to be expected with the Islanders, but they showed signs throughout the regular season that they maybe had that figured out. They played well against the Islanders all year. When you have a fourth line playing the best hockey on the team,
Right.
it can be rough.
Teddy Bluger was the best player on the ice. That's never a good thing.
There we go for the quota. What worries me though is that fourth line is our biggest strength. We can put them out. They, all three of those guys make up 3 of our 4 penalty killing forwards. And they score shorthanded too. Even Zach Aston Reese had a shorthanded goal in this series. It was a goal to make it 4-1 and a big loss. But the scoring up at the top of the lineup just wasn't coming. I mean, Malkin did have 5 points in 4 games once he was healthy. It'd be interesting to see if this series goes a little bit different if he was playing the first 2 games. At the same time, he also at times just killed us with penalties. I don't know what the answer is for what the Penguins do moving forward. I'm glad we have Jeff Carter for another year. I'm also
what an addition.
He was so good. He was so good for us since we got him. The thing about that fourth line being arguably our best line, big part of the problem with that is that I think one of those guys is going to Seattle. My guess would be we probably protect Tanev, and I think we're seeing either Aston Reese or Bluger going to Seattle, unless they decide they want Casey DeSmith as a backup goalie. Goaltending wise, we need to get. If DeSmith isn't hurt, we have another option at least. We had to just leave Jari in. Even like if we were gonna keep starting him, maybe we could have pulled him once we were down 3-0 in game 4. Sorry,
Hmm.
We might be able to pull him and not just completely let them shell him, but we're not going to put him Maxim Lagasse in the playoffs.
No.
And we were really hamstringed by our backup goalie being injured. Our backup goalie, who is arguably,
A better goalie.
I don't think he's as good as Jari, but he's got more NHL experience, and they play in tandem a lot.
Hmm.
Um, Overall, I I did not expect us to win the division.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you look at it, all that stuff, but then you come into this season, and like you said, they're either gonna win the Stanley Cup or they're not making the playoffs. They ended up winning the division. They looked first month of the season fucking
Terrible.
terrible, and then the second half of the season they had the best record in the NHL. Um, so what do you do?
I'll give it a B plus for a great regular season, but just the way this playoffs went down, just everything that could go wrong goes wrong. And that fucking double minor call at the end of game
Oh,
6. Penguins down by 2 with just under 5 minutes left. We take a double minor for high sticking. Matt Martin is on his knees. His face is below people's waists. How do you call a 4-minute major for high sticking on that play? The way the Penguins were playing, they're not going to win that game anyways. But
hmm.
let the Islanders put the dagger in us. Don't do it yourself with a terrible fucking call. But it's good to see a good clean player like Matt Martin get the benefit of the doubt on something like that. It's just a fucking ridiculous situation to give that, just to give 4 minutes on that play. It's just
Yeah.
terrible. That said,
Yep.
that's not why we lost. I'm seeing
I
a lot
think
of
we will.
stupid shit. I'm seeing people wanting us to get rid of Malkin and Letang, fire Sullivan. It's crazy how fast Sullivan goes from coach of the year to he needs to be fired in Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
Our fan base are acting like absolute fucking morons right now. It's fucking embarrassing to watch. Um, Depending how this offseason goes, we'll see. As much as I've kind of been resistant towards I don't think we have the speed anymore to do what we've been doing, where we just try to ignore the other team trying to suck us into the physical game. I don't know if we can do that anymore. I think we might need to get bigger. And because once the Islanders decided to start playing grudge match hockey against us, we were fucked. And I don't know if we have the fire left in the core to be able to just play the way we've been trying to play these few years and expect it to not catch up to us in the playoffs.
Hmm. I guess I'll kind of wrap up this Penguin segment. Yari has to get the playoff experience at some point,
Yeah.
and I mean that was the only way to. Again, the only way to do that is play him, and it sucks that DeSmith was hurt. Because, like you said, otherwise it's probably a tandem going into the playoffs. But, um,
Which has its own
I
issues, especially when you've got a team like Boston coming up and you're second guessing who's getting the start each night. That's never a good
right,
situation. That's why we'll talk about it in a minute. It's very interesting what's happening in Vegas right now. But
yeah, I saw that. I saw that this morning or this afternoon, I guess.
I mean, we were playing the Islanders to see who gets slaughtered by Boston, and they won that sweepstakes. And you guys get a better pick because of it. As
Yeah.
bad as Jari was, the middle in
Oh,
overtime,
brutal,
such
brutal.
a bad play. Uh,
And I'll give him this. I saw what he was trying to do on the play. Like you see the thought process there. That's just a play you don't make though, and that's a
that
young mistake. That's a young kid mistake.
yeah,
Um, but again, like I said, the only way he's going to get experience, especially if this Penguins team is as good as potentially still good for the next couple of years, the only way for him to get his experience is to play him. So I'll give him that. Um, I don't know what this offseason is going to look like for the Penguins. I don't think it's as interesting as potentially the Capitals situation. I don't think it's going to be as extreme as what we've both been reading from Penguins fans.
No.
Um, but there could be some moves to be made.
I think the biggest name coming out of Pittsburgh in the offseason is possibly Jason Zucker.
I think he's Seattle bound.
I I did not think about the fact that we could not protect him and try to get Seattle to take him. That would actually probably be more appealing to them than Aston Reese or Bluger.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. We've talked about it. I'm sure in the next 3 to 4 weeks you'll start see, especially for probably in the next 2 weeks even, you'll start seeing these protected lists come out for these teams that are already eliminated.
So something that just popped into my head, the way that Seattle did a lot of like, if you give us this pick, we'll take that guy.
You mean Vegas?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to see a team like the Penguins who could easily protect Zucker so that they get a return for him and be like, listen, you can have one of our fourth liners. They're a good player. We will leave Jason Zucker unprotected if you give us a pick.
Mm-hmm.
It would kind of be interesting to see if a GM would be able to negotiate something like that the other way around. Like, it would come down to like how much they're looking at one of our fourth line guys, which I think if you can get like Jason Zucker for a third round pick and have him unprotected in expansion, that might be something worth, trying. It's just an idea I just had, but
yeah, and like I said, that's the beauty of an expansion draft and a lot of it not knowing who is protected and unprotected yet. Plenty of room for speculation.
Yeah. And
so
I like Jason Zucker as much as the next guy, unless the next guy is you. But he just has not worked out with us. He started out well, and it's just not panning out. It's hard to imagine a reason for keeping him. He doesn't fit with Crosby or Malkin particularly well.
I told you coming into this, you're gonna love him, but he's gonna drive you absolutely bad shit for the chances he doesn't convert.
Yeah.
And that kind of held true.
The thing is, his role on the team, he's been playing in a second line role, but the production and way he's played has been more like a third line grinding,
And that is Jason Zucker's ultimate problem right there.
Consistency.
He has the ceiling to be a second line consistent guy. He's again, because it's what I know, he falls into that realm of like a Charlie Coyle, who teams want to play him on the second line, but in the end of the day, he's a third line guy.
Yeah.
And so
it's just he kind of has that thing though. If you get 30 goals once, you are forever considered a 30-goal scorer. And because of that, no one, and he literally did it once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 38 games, 9 goals, 9 assists.
But again, think of the number of games he's missed this year.
18.
Yeah. That's another problem. I mean, that's always going to be the problem with Jason is does not historically stay healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I'm looking at this. He had 3 years in a row where he played 79, 82, and 81 games. Other than that, he's only played 70 or more once. He had 71 the year before that stretch. Sorry about that. My girlfriend called and absolutely fucked us. Oh yeah, he had that stretch of 71, 79, 82, 81 games. But before that, his games played by career 6, 20, 21, 51. That stretch 71, 79, 82, 81, 60, 45, 15, 38. That 45 and 15 is 1 year that adds up to 60. Yeah, he generally misses at least 20 games a year, and that's tough.
Yeah. Final grade, let's wrap, not to rush you, but overall, where do you fall?
because of the regular season, and again, kind of, we were in Capitals territory. Some people had us not even making the playoffs. I'll give it a B plus because the regular season was so good. It would be A minus, but that playoff showing was just terrible.
Yeah, I fall solid B. A lot of it has to do with that playoff showing. Just I don't want to call it non-competitiveness because they led that series 2-0.
2-1, but yeah.
2-1. So yeah, yeah, B for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just very disappointing. Very sad.
Yeah. We will get into the West Division, and again, another series we covered a little bit. Colorado eliminates St. Louis, and Colorado moves on. St. Louis swept out of the playoffs. I saw St. Louis play a lot more than you did this year. My take on St. Louis is this: they're a really fucking good team who got really unlucky, had a ton of injury history, and then got hot when it mattered, and then got put up against the best team in the NHL.
I think that's fair. I mean, they wouldn't have had to play Colorado if it wasn't for that month where they just couldn't win a fucking game.
Mm-hmm.
They
they
got it. Obviously,
outbreaks.
Someone was going to get Colorado.
Yeah.
And
COVID outbreaks. They've had big time injuries.
They lost their captain.
Lost their captain.
They have a goalie that's a hot-headed douchebag.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though. Personally, I don't think this St. Louis team is going anywhere, especially going into next season. I still think they're going to be a really good team. Torrey Krug, another year in that system, is going to be great, or continue to build on the season he had. Your big question mark is Jordan Binnington, honestly.
It's not so much money that it kills them, but I think they're going to regret that contract. We've said it since it was signed. Another thing for them, Justin Falk adapting to that system, a big improvement from last year.
Massive improvement.
Yeah, I saw a lot of their fans were really upset about that, especially because him coming in was a big sign that more or less likely Pietrangelo would not be coming back. I think between Krug and Falk by committee kind of taking that role, it's obviously better if you can get it all in one player, but I think as far as teams that lose their captain goes, you still have Ryan O'Reilly for the leadership aspect of it, and that just the production from the blue line. I think Falk and Krug fill that hole pretty well, even though obviously you prefer to have one guy get it, but there's only so many guys of that caliber in the NHL, and they lost one of them.
Another season essentially without Vladimir Tarasenko too. Missed quite a bit this year.
I think that's just kind of the reality for this team at this point. Is
agreed.
Tarasenko's generally not going to be there.
Yeah. So that's a lot of scoring. They had young guys step up big time. I can't think of their names because I really don't give a shit about the Blues. But again, a team coming up with Stanley 2 years ago, still looking strong. And outside of 2 COVID outbreaks and then a month where they couldn't win a game, the way they rebounded and I don't think the Blues are going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I don't know. I don't think they have another Stanley Cup run in them the way they are right now, but I think they're going to continue to be a tough team to deal with for a few more years here. There's no reason to believe they're just going to go away, whether they're top contenders or not.
Agreed. Again, a team that I find hard to grade just because of all the things they went through. Came into the playoffs super hot and then just ran into a buzzsaw. So
I
B
think
minus B.
I'm gonna give it a C plus because the Blues, at their best, they looked the way they're expected to look, and they did run into a hot team in the playoffs, but they ran into it because they should have been up in that battle for second and third, but they were fucking terrible for a
Mm-hmm.
big part of the year. So it's not like there was four teams battling it out the whole time and they just fell out. They had to fight to get into that fourth place spot. And the way it turned out at the end, it wasn't too much of a fight. And that fight was mostly against Dallas, another team who also struck, not Dallas.
Arizona.
They beat out Arizona. Like they I don't think that they played well enough to like act like they didn't deserve to get stuck with that good team. They should have been up battling for second or third. And all the COVID stuff, obviously it's kind of hard to quantify that like you said, but I mean, that's just part of the reality of the league this season. And a lot of other teams had issues and navigated them, and St. Louis didn't. So I'm going to give them a C plus just cuz they at their best, they were as good as they should be, which is good. It's very good. But they should have done that more. And they spent a lot of the season underperforming.
Yeah, like I said, part of me doesn't know how much credit to give the COVID stuff. So I'm gonna be the nicer teacher here and fall under a B minus.
All right.
And we will wrap up this solidified portion of this with the Vegas and the Wild. Vegas dispatches the Wild in 7 games.
Well, we still have the little bit of a mess in the north, but yeah.
Yeah. Going down in 7 games is better than going down in 5 games.
Yeah.
Especially the way you looked in games 3 and 4. So I'll give this team all of that credit. I did have some big whole spiel ready for when they did get eliminated in 5 games. So it's hard not to just run through that in my head. But here's my thing with the Wild season. It's really hard to come out of this season and with all the positivity in the world, but also just kind of like same shit, different story. With a playoff loss in the first round. You've made the playoffs every year since 2010, except for 1 year. But in those 9 years, you've only got out of the first round once. That's brutal. You give up a hat trick in Game 7 to a guy who hadn't scored with the goalie in the net since being traded to Vegas. That's a little harsh of a reality to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, did not expect Janmark to have a hat trick in
No.
Game 7.
No. And it's I'm super happy that I've talked about it before. This is going to be my favorite Wild regular season for a long time. Playoffs are just the playoffs. Vegas showed up. The Wild did not. I wouldn't say they didn't. They forced a Game 7, but just long run. I guess I would say almost the team isn't built for a long run at this point, which is interesting going forward. The other thing too is Joel Eriksson, Kevin Fiala, and Kirill Kaprizov are all restricted free agents this offseason. And I pay all 3 of them. You lock down Foligno and Hartman with team-friendly deals this offseason, or during the season. So that kind of took care of itself, but you're going to have to pay all 3 of those guys. And then obviously you're going to have to figure out what you do with Zach Parise. He still has 4 years left on that contract. Didn't play the first 3 games of the series, and then he came in and was the best player on the ice for the last 4 games of those series for the Wild. Specifically in Game 7, he was flat out the best player on the ice. I'm somebody under the belief of there is a spot for Zach Parise on this roster, but I think at some point you sit him down and say, listen, we'd rather you play 60 to 65 games a season and stay healthy come playoffs as opposed to you're playing all 82 and we have a really rundown Zach Parise by the end of the year. But is that a realistic expectation to say to somebody who also was half expecting the captaincy coming into this year?
Yeah.
And you didn't give it to him. And no offense to Jared Spurgeon, he's a great choice for captain, but I think part of Zach's frustration this year is not being named captain. And take that for what you will. Zach has been a class act about everything that he's gone through this season. And I do think it's just the terms of the NHL caught up to Zach Parise really fast. And obviously a guy like Ryan Suter, his game is built for long term, but a guy like Zach Parise, maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
That's going to be super interesting situation to see how Billy Guerin handles that. Obviously, like I said, you have some restricted free agents to take care of, but this core, I mean, Kaprizov is whatever you hand him a blank check.
Yeah.
You say write out the contract.
Yeah. He
Kevin
gets
Fiala,
whatever he wants.
Yeah. Kevin Fiala is you just give him whatever the fuck he wants. Kevin Fiala is a little bit more of an interesting situation of you see all the upsides in his game, but what does a realistic contract for Kevin Fiala look like? Joel Eriksson Ek proved that he's a second line player, a top 6 player in this league. What does a realistic contract for that guy look like? Fiala and Ek are going to get paid. You're probably going to show Brad Hunt the door. You're probably going to show Marcus Johansson the door. Carson Soucy is probably gone to the expansion draft. Luckily, you have guys like Matt Boldy and Marco Rossi coming up in the pipeline. I'm in the firm belief of this team needs a bona fide top center if you're going to keep Kirill Kaprizov very long term. Jack Eichel is just sitting there. And I would pay a lot of money to go get Jack Eichel and potentially use the term overpay to go get Jack Eichel for this team. But again, it's going to be, this is a team to watch over the offseason. There's a potential for a blockbuster from this Wild organization, which is not something I've said since 2013.
I'm giving the Wild an A-. I'm giving them an A. I thought this team was terrible. They came around. I mean, they were consistently one of the fun. This is the first year where I've ever found myself like going out of my way to tune in for Wild games, not just because they're playing in the West Coast or something and they're the only game on at 10 o'clock. Like there's nights where I would just watch the Wild, and that has never been a thing, ever. Their rookie goal scoring record was 19 coming into this year. Kaprizov was just insane. And the thing, even getting to the playoffs, a first round loss is disappointing, but it's kind of to be expected for a team. It reminds me a lot of when that first year of Austin Matthews in Toronto. The way that one player sparked the team so much, and he had more help than Kaprizov had. Fiala, I mean, yeah, the good thing is he's an RFA. And you kind of hope you can work something out without arbitration, because he seems like someone that could be a big part of this future, and sometimes arbitration sours things. Especially then when you look at... But I don't know if I've ever seen a team turn around this quickly. I'm not surprised they lost in the first round. It was against a good team. What I'm surprised by is that usually when you see these teams sparked by one player like this, and just like this youth movement, they usually don't take a Stanley Cup favorite to Game 7 in the first round. And they did it hanging on by a thread. It showed character. Kaprizov came alive late in the series. I think he had 2 games in a row where he scored after not scoring the whole series. He scored in 5 and 6, right?
Yep.
Or 6 and 7. I don't know.
6 and 7.
Yeah.
6 and 7. 2 goals and an assist in his first NHL playoffs. Pretty, I mean, I don't want to say to be expected, but like we've seen other players struggle in their first series, playoff series.
And as much
We've
as the
also seen,
Wild, what made the difference for them was the youth movement. They do still have that veteran leadership up top too, to where I
fully,
guess it's not
yeah,
a complete shock that they pulled this together the way they did, and put up.
no,
Usually, a team like this doesn't put up the fight they put up in the playoffs.
no,
Usually, when a rookie team
and
goes down 3-1, it's maybe going to 6.
yeah, and like I said, I'd rather lose in seven than lose in five, but I'd also like to see a better game seven. I feel bad for Cam Talbot because he kind of, as good as Fleury was in this series, nobody talked about just how good Cam Talbot was in this series. Finishes with two shutouts in the series. In a do or die game six, he shuts them out on like 40 shots. Um, he was great. He was fantastic. And then, unfortunately, in the most important game, game seven, he got left out to dry a little bit.
Yeah, this is a
Um,
team that if they handle, they have a lot of pending free agents here, restricted and unrestricted.
yeah, it is the downside.
Um, the thing
Go
is with
through the
that, a
list.
lot of it is depth players though, and I mean they had decent depth, but not irreplaceable depth. You
We'll
can
go through the
replace Nick
list.
Bonino.
You
They're
can
pending.
easily
They're pending unrestricteds. Marcus
mhm,
Johansson, Nick Bonino,
gone,
Nick
gone,
Bukestad. By the
gone.
way, Nick Bukestad, my uncle
I would.
actually texted me, and this made me think. Nick Bonino or Nick Bukestad has a reputation as a big guy that plays a soft game. I think he did a lot to shake that in a contract year in this playoffs.
I think he comes back.
I
I think they bring Bukestad back.
If you can get him for the right price, yeah. As I mean, in Pittsburgh, what my uncle said was that we didn't get to see this fight out of Bonino in Pittsburgh. Truth is, we didn't get to see Bonino in Pittsburgh at all, really.
Yeah.
I am so curious about what you just got up and ran to your window for.
Oh, I had to keep my PlayStation from turning off because I'm watching the Carolina game.
Oh, okay. Um,
Vasilevsky just stole a game.
Further unrestricteds, Kyle Rao,
Gone.
Joseph Cramarosa. That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Does he even play on the roster?
Taxi squad.
Luke Johnson. That guy is that is a witness protection program plant. Luke
Eh,
Johnson. That is not a real person. Ian
the man's
Cole,
made of. He'll be brought back. That
Brad
is
Hunt,
gone.
Dakota Mermis.
Mermis is a question mark. So here's the thing with Dakota Mermis: the Wild really like him, but they haven't had a spot for him.
And he's 27, so he's not going to want to
Yeah.
stick around on a team that doesn't have a spot. I don't
Right.
know who he is. I'll take your word for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Louis Belpedio.
Del Pedio is an AHL guy, but again, the Wild like him.
And speaking of AHL guys, the Hamburglar, Andrew Hammond.
That was a depth move for Alex Stalock, and obviously Stalock finished the season in Edmonton. So
So out of that, you want to bring back
Ian Cole,
Ian
Nick
Cole,
Bukestad.
Johansson if you can, and Bukestad.
I don't want to bring back Marcus Johansson.
Oh, you don't? I
No,
thought
he
you
was
were liking
fucking.
him.
He played. So he was fucking terrible at the beginning of the season. He had like a 3 week run mid to late season where you're like, fuck, okay, like let's go with Mojo, and then he just looked fucking awful. The rest, he's not coming back.
Okay. And then the last three I did Rao, Cramarosa, and Johnson. Who of those do you care if
No,
they bring
those
back?
are taxi. Those are
Okay.
AHL taxi squad guys.
And then there are restricted free agents. Obviously, Fiala, Erikssonek, Kaprizov, and Duhaime.
Duhaime, AHL guy.
So Kaprizov, Erikssonek, and Fiala. Obviously, you have to figure out those three.
I think all three of those deals get done. Um, Again, cap freeze year is weird. You might get the Parisi contract off the books, so that helps a lot. But again, I'm a guy who falls under the impression of there's a spot for Zach Parise on this fucking roster. So,
it's just kind of hard to imagine them. All three of those guys, Eric Sinek, you're probably like mid-range. Like I'd say maybe like 4 million ish.
4 or 5, yeah.
Fiala probably 6, 7. Kaprizov,
whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, and Kaprizov, it's
$30
whatever
million.
he wants, but there is the fact that he's only played one season. He has no arbitration rights, I don't think.
Nope.
His is listed weird. It says 10.2 in parentheses C and then a question mark. This player has not accrued the necessary amount of professional seasons required for Group 2 RFA status. They are ineligible for an offer sheet. Okay, so no one can even offer sheet him.
No.
But you also don't want to piss him off because this is the guy you want to be your franchise player.
Yeah.
So they have room. They can keep all three of them.
They've already talked to his agent at multiple points this season. Allegedly there is already a deal on the table, potentially, according to Russo of The Athletic. The Wild have hinted at some type of long-ish deal. Here's how I think it lays out. Fiala gets 6-7 mil, 4 or 5 year deal, something like that.
Yeah.
X signs a bridge deal of some kind.
Walk him to unrestricted free agency and see, because he's
a
really good player, but there's a lot of players of his level out there.
But the way he played this year, he kind of had the feeling he's gonna get fucking like capital P paid.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think, though, with the cap freeze, it's almost in his best interest to sign for something until he hits unrestricted free agency. I don't know exactly when that is for him. Let's see. He's 24, so yeah, like a 2, maybe 3 year deal, and let him hit free agency right around his prime.
Yeah.
And see what you have then. I think 4 or 5 million, 2 or 3 years for Eck, if I was based on what I see his market value at.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Like I said, biggest thing this offseason, I'm telling you, man, watch for this team to make a big fucking move this offseason.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing. They have enough. The thing with all those guys going out, there's a lot of question marks, but it gives them a lot of flexibility. I mean, even if they get rid of Parise, you're probably retaining some salary. I mean, if you retain $3 million, that's almost half the contract. Someone's getting Parise for 4.5. It frees up 4.5 for you, and it gives a team Parise at a more realistic value. He's 36. That's still a tough sell. I don't know.
Exactly. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And he said in his exit interview yesterday, I still have 4 years left on my contract.
What do you think about Zuccarello with the year? He has 3 seasons left at $6 million, and that's someone you can maybe get a return for to cut some cap space too.
He has a full no trade.
Yes, he does.
Thanks,
but
he
Fenton. Signed it with a different team, though.
Thanks, Paul Fenton.
Yeah. Because
he signed.
Jesus Christ, this
Jesus
fucking
Christ.
dog. All right. That scared me.
It scared me. Are you still recording?
Yeah.
Matt Zuccarello is a very interesting person to me. Plays really well with Kaprizov. My biggest issue with Zuccarello is he does not shoot the fucking puck at all. But he's really good on the penalty kill. He's a nice special teams guy. He's a nice piece to have. His contract flat out sucked. 4-year deal for, I forget what the money was. But full no trade.
$6 million. $6 million a year.
Yeah. But not even like a 10-team no trade, just a straight up full no trade, no movement clause in it. I think that's going to be a guy who you want to talk about a guy a hard sell to potentially waive that as Matt Zuccarello. I think he really, really likes it here, and to potentially ask him to leave is asking a lot.
I don't think it's as hard as it is to get him to leave the Rangers, but yeah.
He's also the only guy on the team that speaks Russian.
Oh, he speaks Russian? He's a Swede.
Yeah, he knows Swedish, Russian, and German. So
Okay.
so he can talk to Nico Sturm, who's German, and he can talk to Kaprizov.
Yeah, that's tough. You might be saddled with that one.
But again, the contract sucks. I don't hate the player. I hate the contract.
At the same time, I mean, he put up 35 points in 42 games.
Yeah.
It's not. You can have, as far as bad contracts go, it's better to have a bad contract on a player who's at least, that's like
Productive.
that's like 0.85 points per game. You
Yeah,
can swallow that kind of bad. Everyone has a bad contract somewhere. If your worst contract, one of your worst contracts, is getting 35 points in 42 games, about 0.83 points per game, you're not too bad off there.
No, like I said, I hate the GM who signed it and the deal he signed. Don't hate the player.
Holy hell, I knew he was a small guy. I did not know he was 5'8".
Yeah, he's tiny, dude.
Jesus.
But yeah, I'll wrap up this portion. It's an A. I'm fucking proud of this team.
Yeah. Unreal.
So proud, and that future is really bright. And like we've talked about with Nashville, we didn't talk about it with St. Louis, but again, they're going back to a really tough division, and I think they're going to make a lot of noise in that division next year.
Yeah, that division's gonna be real interesting because they've already been a stacked division. You also, like when you talk about the Central, even the Blackhawks, they have their moments where they, for like a month, will be one of the better teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of why that never lasts is because it just happens with young players. They can't do it for 82 games. You got to think eventually that's going to start clicking. I mean, Chicago has a lot of question marks. It might not start clicking anytime soon.
No.
But it could any minute also.
Yeah.
They're in that territory of I could see them being really good or really bad going into next year.
I mean, Arizona took a jump. Dallas, with everything they had going on, looked like Dallas, and they're going to be fully healthy coming back into next year.
I don't know about Arizona, man. They're already talking about selling and blowing it up.
I know. We'll see. But again, there's a huge potential that division's really that's 4 teams from this division alone that made the playoffs.
I'm sorry about my dog, everyone. She's being a real jackass right now. There's just technical errors left and right. At least we're buzzing through it despite all the bullshit, but we have had the worst luck. Feedback, my dumbass dog, my girlfriend called me in the middle of the episode.
I really thought you were going to say my dumbass girlfriend there for a second. Let's just move on to the Canadian division. Winnipeg, 4-0. Down goes Edmonton.
Yeah.
In embarrassing fashion. A monster comeback in Game 3. Another comeback in Game 4 to finish the sweep. Edmonton, see you later.
Yeah, I picked Winnipeg. And so, obviously, I'm not as surprised as so many people seem to be. But I can't believe it was a sweep.
I can't either. Connor Hellebuck, take a bow.
Yeah. It was just this series was blink and you missed it.
Yeah.
It was not even. It wasn't even really worth watching. It was just bad. Edmonton blowing leads in the last 2 games.
It was 2-0 Winnipeg in the series before I went, oh shit, that's right. Those 2 teams are playing each other.
Yeah. So the grade for Edmonton, I mean...
Honestly, because of the way it ended, I have to go a C.
Yeah, I mean they where
Think
they
about
got in
what
the
they've done.
division. I mean they were about as good as they should be, and then it all collapsed. It's the same thing, like we said. It's a hot goalie can ruin a series, especially when it's against a team that only has two fucking players.
And I will say this: Bullets have left guns slower than how fast Connor McDavid's going to leave Edmonton.
Yeah.
Allegedly, he threw like he is fucking furious in Edmonton,
Well, and the thing
and
is, by no fault of his own, it's hurting his reputation.
mm-hmm,
It's not fair, but it is, when you're that good, people want a reason to knock you down, and Edmonton gives those people plenty of reasons. It's not
mm-hmm,
fair. It's stupid when you look at the guy that would have had at that pace like 150 points in an 82 game season and you
mm-hmm.
decide that he's the problem. But that's
Yeah,
just the reality of how hockey fans fucking are, because let's face it, a lot of hockey fans are very fucking stupid and tribalistic and don't like to admit that guys from teams they don't like are good. But I mean it's tarnishing his legacy, and he is too. And now it's like, like the big one, like I obviously my point of reference for this is I see Penguins fans who refuse to say that he's anywhere near as good as Crosby, even though he's better than Sidney Crosby. He's not as good
mm-hmm.
of a 200-foot player. Neither was Crosby at that point in his career. But what he doesn't
But
have anymore,
Connor,
Crosby won a Stanley Cup in his fourth year. Connor is
Connor
past
is
that now, where it's not just like as far as team success. I mean, it's stupid to measure a player by that, but for the people who do, he's past the point where you can say he's only been there for how long. Because he's been there for a minute now.
yeah. Um, the other thing with Connor too is you kind of brought up his 200-foot game. Honestly, it's a weakness at some point, and you're starting to see him get really frustrated on the ice when he went from never really showing emotion to now over the last 2 years, Montreal has got to him, Toronto's got to him. I remember a Wild game where the Wild got to him. Um, he's starting to show some really big signs of frustration, and that coupled with his 200-foot game, I don't know how good that is for the locker room. And I don't want to be that guy,
Yeah.
but like there are cracks in the armor of Connor McDavid, the golden boy of the NHL.
Yeah, he. To me, the only question of why he would maybe stay in Edmonton is the duo of
Leon,
him and Leon
Leon,
Draisaitl, and no one can afford both of those players on the cap or what it would cost to acquire those players. If you give up what it would cost to get both of those guys, you just made yourself another Edmonton where you only have those two.
yeah,
By what's left after
mm-hmm.
that trade. If either one of them leave, there's no way that they continue their careers together unless they stay in
No,
Edmonton. And I think
yeah,
that, and I've said this before, Connor McDavid
whatever.
left some money on the table to sign this deal with Edmonton, and they turned around and they used that money to give Zach Cassian about $4 million a fucking year.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much reason to be fucking heated with the way that management has managed this team. And so much of it is because they just keep giving those 80s guys that won the Stanley Cups big positions that they have no qualifications for other than past success with that franchise.
Right. So, um, I think you said it all really well. There's not much else I can say. Um, what's your overall grade?
The regular season was about what was expected. The playoffs were fucking
Was an F.
terrible.
Was an F.
I'm giving it a C minus, barely above a D plus.
Mm-hmm.
If this
Um,
was letter grades, it would be a 70, the bare minimum for a C minus.
um, I'll ask you this because it's been kind of a running joke on this podcast. Who's on their team starting next year, Connor McDavid or Jack Eichel?
Oh my god, if they traded McDavid for Eichel, That would be the funniest thing in hockey.
But who's on their team that they ended the season with?
What do you mean?
Like, does Connor McDavid take the opening face-off opening night in Edmonton in an Oilers jersey, or does Eichel take the opening face-off in Buffalo in a Sabres jersey?
I thought you meant who's on the Edmonton Oilers between McDavid.
Yeah, no.
Hold on a second. I have to pause. This fucking dog, dude. All right, that was hopefully our last break of this episode. My dog is just ridiculous. Miranda got home, absolutely fucked us again. we are not catching any breaks tonight.
Nope.
Yeah, no. I don't know. I think Eichel's a lot more likely to be gone than McDavid. I don't think McDavid gets traded in the offseason.
No, I just think the frustration's starting to mount for McDavid.
Yeah, and I mean, understandably. The thing with Eichel is this is, I think, the last season before his trade protection kicks in.
Yep.
So I think there's more of a vested interest in getting rid of Eichel sooner when you have more control over where you trade him. Whereas McDavid, actually, same thing. Both of their no movement clause. Wait. Oh, yeah, they were the same draft. I was thinking for some reason they were different drafts. Yeah, both of them, This is the last year where their teams can trade them anywhere before no movement kicks in. But, I mean, if you're Edmonton and you think you're going to trade Connor anyways, don't you wait until values for players skyrocket at the deadline?
Yeah.
Like, when you see what, I mean...
And we've seen teams who get swept like this in the first round fucking tank out of the gate the next season.
Yeah. I think opening night, I don't know if Eichel will be in Buffalo. I think Connor will still be in Edmonton. But, I mean, if they wait and trade him at the deadline, they could get so much for him from a team looking to get him to add at the deadline. It would be one of the biggest trades. It would probably be the biggest trade of this era. I mean, it's Connor McDavid.
Imagine trading Gretzky and McDavid.
Yeah.
He's following in the Gretzky footsteps, man. People didn't want to make the comparison early in his career, but it's hard not to.
Even production-wise, adjusted for era, it's got to be close. I haven't really looked at that because I don't really care about adjustments for era. But
yeah,
but
yeah, it's interesting.
Edmonton's fucking terrible. But I mean, assuming that you end up like your front office doesn't fuck up, if you dump Leon and Connor at the deadline next year, what you get in return is going to be so much.
Yeah. And we will move on to the one playoff series, first round playoff series still going on. It's Toronto, Montreal. Toronto blows a 3-1 series lead in devastating fashion. 2 overtime goals, both by Jesperi Kotkaniemi, to force a Game 7 in Toronto. Oh boy. Buckle up, Maple Leafs fans, because this might be the worst one of them all.
It really, and it's, more of a rival than Boston's become a rival because of those series. Montreal was already a rival, so that's got to sting a little worse. Just, as soon as Tavares went down, though, like I said, the thing with Toronto is they're one disaster away from this being a possibility. And I had a feeling that could be the disaster that leads to it. And it's... I mean, this is scripted at this point, right? Like, they're fucking with us. These games... How does the same team just keep having this happen to them?
They were put on this earth explicitly to deal pain to their franchises or to their fan base.
It's just unbelievable.
It really is ridiculous. there's parts of this series I want to save for when we're all together. Um, Specifically the officiating aspect because it's been fucking atrocious.
Yeah.
Um, and we've talked about the officiating enough, but I want to save it for with the group, so I'll save it for then, for them.
Well, plus
But
we'll have a
dude,
result then.
yeah, it's. I'm gonna be honest here. I think Montreal does it. I thought last night coming back from 2-0 down, Toronto's down 2-0 late in the third period. They tie it. I'm like, this is when Toronto puts a dagger in them.
And
They
it's
outshot Montreal 12-2 in that overtime, and one of Montreal's two shots went in.
yeah. And
It's just
like, what does Toronto even have as a pushing off point going into Game 7? You know, it's in the back of their head how many times this has happened before, and the way they've lost the games, the fact that it's 2 in a row, I I I think Toronto finds a way to win, but I think they lose to Winnipeg anyway.
Yeah, and that's my thing is like I've had Toronto been ride or die with the Maple Leafs all season, and this is the first time where I'm just like, fuck.
Yeah. So we'll leave a grade
yeah.
because we don't have one yet. You know, it depends, but I mean, if Toronto loses this, it's bad. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna affect their grade. And let's just transition that into going into the second round. We'll start with the North going off this because it's a little bit iffy because we don't know who's going to be playing Winnipeg. But honestly, either way, I think Winnipeg takes it.
Same. I'm in agreement. We'll move on to the Central. This series is now 1-0 Tampa Bay. Tampa gets a late goal from Gaudreau to take the game, and it's 1-0 Tampa right now against Carolina.
Tampa doesn't have the defense to shut down Carolina the way Nashville did at times.
But they have
enough of a defense to outscore Carolina. As high as I am on Carolina, I think the way Tampa played in that first round and coming off of that, I think it put them in a position where there's going to be one round still that they're unstoppable, and unfortunately Carolina's getting them in that round, coming off of the momentum from that Florida series.
And this is a very different series for them. Carolina does not play how Florida plays. So, I mean, it's two very drastically different styles of play.
I mean, it's almost polar opposites between Carolina and Florida.
The one thing here is tonight, I think Carolina ended with 40 shots on goal, and Andre Vasilevsky, again, fucking huge, and then between the pipes, and again, the Nishkinen kid, or however you pronounce his last name for Carolina, I don't think he's going to be able to hold up.
Yeah.
I have Tampa in 6.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, they're not going to just make quick work of them. No. But
Carolina's too good to be 4 or 5 games and done.
Yeah, but I mean, Tampa just came against a team that can trade chances and hang in there with even a team like Tampa in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now they're playing a team who, while probably less likely to let Tampa score on the chances back and forth, they're not going to get as many chances. I don't think Carolina can keep up with the way Tampa can have a track meet with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll have their games and their moments where they can hold them off, and it'll be a series. But I think Tampa's taking this.
Yeah. We'll move on to the East. Boston leads the Islanders 1-0. We kind of already talked about this one a
The
little
Islanders
bit.
are so fucked.
Yeah,
The,
they're whew,
the,
yes they are.
this might be a sweep.
It very well could be. Um, whew, yeah, I don't know who's stopping Boston right now. I'm going Boston in 5. I think they go back to Fort Never Lose and get one.
Yeah.
And
Boston in 5 tops. While we're at it, Dylan did text me his picks. So I'll also just briefly go over his as we go over them. Dylan also took Tampa in 7. In 6.
Mm-hmm.
Winnipeg versus either team in 7.
Yeah, I could go with that.
And Boston in 5. So
yeah,
he's pretty much, it's like he's here. He texted me these about an hour before we recorded.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I'm sure Trent is picking Boston.
Yeah, in 4. Somehow he's picking them in 3 games.
Yeah, and I imagine he's picking Winnipeg too.
Yeah. The Tampa one, I think he'd go Carolina.
I think he'd go Carolina. Trent's a fan of the defense first teams.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I'd say Trent so far, it's taken Winnipeg, Carolina, Boston, obviously. That one I know he's taken Boston.
Yeah.
Well, he told us last night when I said the Isles are fucked in the group chat. Yeah. He responded for sure.
We'll move on to the final second round matchup. Colorado, Vegas, and we already have an interesting development. I'm watching it right now. Robin Lehner just led the Vegas Golden Knights onto the ice.
Yeah. This is a tough one.
This is the most anticipated matchup of the playoffs, first and second round.
Yeah.
People wanted this series.
As bad as they wanted McDavid against Matthews, and we might not get either of those players in the second round. But yeah.
Nope.
Other than that, which was more of a player matchup, team matchup, this is the biggest one of the second. People were pretty excited for Florida Tampa too. But this is a tough one.
Colorado in 7.
I've got it. Yeah, it's gonna be and let me make sure. I'm leaning towards Colorado in 7, and yes, Dylan took Colorado in 7. Colorado is. I think we're gonna get our juggernauts coming out of this in 3 or 4 divisions. I think we're gonna get Tampa, Boston, and Colorado, who all look like the only teams who can beat each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you never know with Connor Hellebuck in the mix in Winnipeg, though. He could make things interesting in the semifinals. But in this one, Colorado is just... I think they have the best roster in hockey.
Yeah, agreed. The one kind of thing I would say about this series, Colorado's been sitting around for over a week now, waiting for this series. And Vegas is coming right off of a Game 7. They got Max Pacioretty back in Game 7, and he immediately scores a goal. Obviously there's no Braden McNabb right now due to COVID reasons. But, the Robin Lehner thing is interesting. You just rode Marc-Andre Fleury for 7 games, and you're going to go to a guy who essentially hasn't played in 4 weeks at this point, in Robin Lehner, in Colorado, in Game 1.
Well, and they've already got that thing I said that I never think is good when you're second guessing who's going to be in net in between games. I don't think it's good for the team. I don't think it's good for either goalie. Maybe for Lehner, having gotten the nod, being shown the sign of faith. But if it doesn't turn out, I think it's bad for Fleury having lost the
Mm-hmm.
net. Uh,
Yeah.
I just think you're getting into dangerous territory when you start fucking around with who's going to be starting night to night. It to a goalie, it accentuates how bad of a game they had if they're coming off a bad one if they don't play the next game. I
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with Vegas though, either one of those goalies can steal games, and that's their saving
Yeah.
grace. And Vegas also, they can score in bunches. They can
Yeah, they
play
can.
they can play 5 good minutes a night and come up with some wins.
They play maybe the most complete 200-foot game in hockey right
Yeah.
now. I mean, Colorado is. I personally, I think Colorado is built for the track meet. Vegas is built for 60 minutes. That's my personal view. But and also going back to Robin Lehner, it's not like he had a bad season. 13-4-2, a .913 save percentage, one shutout.
Yeah, Lehner was
Um,
fine. Fleury just happened to have one of the best seasons of his career.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm not discounting Vegas. I think this goes 7 games, but I don't know, man. The the Avalanche are unreal, and as far as them sitting around, they've had so many injuries this year. They've had guys play cold so many times anyway,
Right.
and have weathered through it.
Hmm.
Jesus Christ. Fleury with a 928 save percentage on the year.
Yeah.
Lehner with a 913, just above
Yep.
average, but I mean, yeah. I think Colorado's the better team. Giving respect to Vegas, the goaltending could steal this for them.
Yeah. Do we want to save overrated, underrated for the next episode with
Yeah, we're
everybody?
at an hour 40.
Yeah. Let's. What are you looking forward to in the second round? Like outside of this Vegas series, as we kind of wrap up here.
I do think the Islanders are gonna, I don't think they're gonna hang in there, but I think that series is gonna get ugly,
Hmm.
and the Islanders are gonna start doing what they did to the Penguins, maybe even a little bit more desperately because I think they'll be in a lot more trouble than they were against the Penguins. I think we could see a pretty decent little grudge match evolve in that series. Um, Tampa and Carolina, I think it's going to be explosive,
Hmm.
even if it at times seems a little one-sided towards Tampa. And I think we're going to see a lot of cool just highlight reel saves from Connor Hellebuck. Just to pick one thing from each series.
Yeah, I would have to go if we're gonna do one thing from each series. Obviously, my thing from this Vegas series, Colorado series, is the whole series itself.
Yeah.
Um, Islanders, um, Islanders, Bruins. I'm just looking forward to the battles. I think that series that series has the potential to either be just a fucking blowout or to be maybe the best series of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Um, uh, see here, Carolina and the Island or Carolina and the Lightning. Um, just looking forward to seeing if Carolina can step up and stop that juggernaut. And then obviously the story is Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so so yeah, I think that'll just about do it for tonight as we wrap up the first out of the playoffs.
Another thing for that Canadian series, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
If Toronto survives and gets into that round, and
Mm-hmm.
if they're playing well, Toronto getting into where they have a shot to get into the Final Four, the atmosphere that's going to come with that. Obviously, not in the arena, but just, as two people that are on hockey social media, everything that will
Mm-hmm.
surround it will
Mm-hmm.
get, for better or worse, entertaining.
I've just thought of something as you were talking about atmosphere. That's a detriment to Toronto going back to Toronto for Game 7. Montreal had fans. Winnipeg or
Oh yeah,
Toronto still doesn't.
yeah,
Toronto has 0 fans. So imagine going into a game 7 to a fucking silent arena.
yeah. Usually they just go into the third period of Game 7 to a silent arena.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Usually they got beat in Boston. Usually it was very loud. Never mind.
But I mean, think of that. Okay, yeah, we're coming home, home ice, and I'll be, oh shit, there's nobody there. Like,
yeah.
that's interesting little, you know.
I can't tell if I'm rooting for Toronto to finally get over that hump, or if I'm rooting to see them fuck up again.
I'm in both camps purely for the fact that I've had Toronto since day one. Like, since we started the previews on this podcast, I said Toronto, Toronto, Toronto. And now I'm sitting here in round 1 going, oh my God, I fucking picked this team to win a Stanley Cup. And,
I don't know, yeah.
All credit to Alec Ramos on this one. I know he doesn't listen, but the person whose mom said they couldn't go to the Stanley Cup parade in 1967, you got to kill your grandma, bro. That family member just has to step up and say, I'm sorry, Grandma. I have to sacrifice you for the good of the Maple Leafs.
Well, and on that dark note, let's wrap this up.
Slapstick Clothing. Hit up Jake on Instagram at slapstick.clothing. Is that the website too?
Slapstickclothing.com, and find them on Facebook by just searching Slapstick Clothing. It's not hard. Don't be dumb.
I'm sure Trent would approve this message.
Peace, fuckers.